My name is Deirdre Pike, and I'm the Justice and Outreach Program Consultant for the Anglican Diocese of Niagara. I'm coming to you today from my home office in downtown Hamilton, where it's another Just Friday. It's Friday. Let's do a little justice work. Today, I'm really pleased to be able to introduce you to Bob Chown. Hi, Bob. How are you doing?
Doing great. It's great to be here.
Yeah, good. Thanks so much for joining me. I've had the pleasure of meeting Bob through Climate Justice Niagara, and Bob joined the committee just over the last year, and through his commitment to that work and his contribution, we've been able to do quite a bit of communication and support around the synod motion that passed just late in 2021. So we're going to talk about that today and talk about what Bob brings to this work and why, and really just what a gift it is to have him involved with Climate Justice Niagara. And there's that. So Bob, once again, it has been a pleasure to work with you at Climate Justice Niagara. I wondered, if you could talk a little bit first about your relationship to your parish. How did you end up at Incarnation in Oakville?
Sure. My growing up years was in the United Church. And in the early 80s, I met and married a Catholic. And probably while the kids were little, I went to the Catholic Church, became close to converting at one point. So for 10 or 12 years, attended one, and then struggled with some aspects of that. And my wife was quite progressive as well. And so over the years on our journey together, we both ended up at Incarnation in Oakville, which is a very progressive community, and just tremendous people there. And so it's been really fun to go there for the past several years and get involved, and we're enjoying it quite a bit.
One of the ways that I know Incarnation has been progressive is in its commitment to doing something about climate crisis at a parish level at that church. And I wondered if you could tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, and this was well underway before we showed up there a few years ago. So I'm going to say 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. There was a group of them that were very interested in how do we reduce our carbon footprint. And they went down the road of putting in a geothermal system, which is fantastic. They are expensive, and it took some fundraising and some donors to make that happen. But they've really also set the gold standard for effectively zero carbon heating and cooling. Geothermal is best. Air source heat pumps are the next best in terms of their performance. But for a building, it's a mid-sized building, I guess you say all in. It's complicated. There's several holes drilled that are several hundred feet deep, and the system's been running for a few years now, and it's fantastic. So, but credits to the leaders there at the time that got on it and made it happen.
Oh, that's great. Now, the Climate Justice Niagara group operates at a diocesan level. We have people on that committee from various parts of the diocese, and it was a pleasure when you joined earlier this year. I was wondering if you could tell me what was it that brought you to make the call or send the email to say I want to be part of this group?
Well, my interest over the past little bit is how do we reduce carbon emissions? And so this was, Sue got in touch with me and said, hey, we're trying to get a baseline of what's going on around here, and maybe it might be something you're interested in. So it's been fun since I have joined. The focus has been, and probably my own focus has been, on developing these audits that we want to see each church do. It's an informal audit, but we're also getting some data on where are you today as a parish. And the big thing is carbon. So how do we reduce our carbon footprints? But we have to start with knowing where we are. And already we've got some of the early forms back, and some of the numbers are really interesting. There's one parish that's got back to us, that's probably putting out 20 tons of carbon a year for a mid-sized building. It might be twice the size of a normal house, and the house might produce 3 or 4 tons of carbon a year. So, that's going to allow us to ask some questions and say, hey, what are things we can do?
You have this knowledge. So my question is, how did you come to be what seems to be a bit of an expert in this area?
Yeah, I use that expert word loosely. Really, Deirdre, I had a 20-year plus career in management consulting, and it was on operations, so factories and lumber mills and pulp mills and these things, and how do we work better and more effectively. And that was all great, but it also came time to make a transition. So I took some time, and I was always interested in housing and specifically energy consumption, and so took a couple courses on passive housing. We were thinking about building a cottage at the time, and I wanted to know how could I build it, as energy efficient as possible. So this all led to me to, yes, interested in passive housing and using less energy, but it really got me focused on electrification. So the real big thing for saving carbon emissions is saving gas, and then electrifying what you can. And then once you are electric, try to push that consumption to overnight.
Well, not everyone has the same level of expertise, but everyone brings, I would say, an equal amount of passion to Climate Justice Niagara. And it's sure a gift that you brought yours, both passion and expertise, to that table. Now, I want to tap into that expertise, thinking ahead to the provincial election. June the 2nd, we're going to be facing the ballot box. And are there things that policies that need to change, or things that we could say to our would-be elected officials that might be connected to the kind of direction you're talking about?
Yeah, there's always more we can do. And the key thing is, as I said, in terms of the carbon footprint. So right now, during the summers, in the daytime and the winter, as I said, we do have any sort of incremental load is going to be met with carbon generated power with very inefficient gas turbines. And we also know that in 2025, we've got this huge source right now of zero carbon power, which is the Pickering nuclear station that's going to close. And it's just at its end of life. So we're going to reach the point where more and more, we're going to go from 6 or 7% carbon in our carbon content in our power on average to being much higher. So it's going to be a long-term deal, and it's going to require renewables. It's going to require more solar, more wind, more hydro. And there's lots being done for example, on hydro right now. I think they're trying to find every little bit of corner of hydro they can and develop it. But I would say anything that our politicians can do that makes sense to help us lead with more and more renewables, obviously it has to make sense. Anything we can do in terms of pushing government policies to be smart about adding more and more low carbon power, we're going to need it. We want to get off gas. So that's definitely the conversations that I would be having with folks as they knock on my door.
Okay, great, good. Well, thanks very much. Those sound like great tips. And I'm once again want to thank you for bringing your knowledge to us, both to your parish, also to Climate Justice Niagara and the diocese, and to each of us today. And thanks to each of you for tuning in to this conversation. And I look forward to seeing you. If you want more information about this, by the way, please go to niagaraanglican.ca. There you'll find a link to Climate Justice Niagara and the work that's happening. And if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to be in touch, and I'll connect you to our built-in expert here. All right. We'll see you all on the next Just Friday.